Hello and welcome to Cherries in Focus, episode 12. Wherever you are in the world, we hope you're having a fantastic week after what was a gutless, unacceptable, and at times criminal performance against Arsenal. And I've got John, Aaron, Steve with me. And on Cherries Red Army, we do pride ourselves on delivering the best content for you, delivering visuals and entertainment. But sometimes you've got to look at a moment like Saturday and you've got to front it up. That's what we're going to do. So slightly different this time. I just want to speak to John, Aaron and Steve. I want to know how they're feeling, where we're at after 7 games, because October is a massive month. And I also want to hear from you guys. So do get your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on our podcast and hit the like button. Wasting no time. Steve, coming to you. I thought we were pretty good for 75 seconds when the whistle went at Dean Court against Arsenal. When it got to 97, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was crap.
Yeah, hi. Nice to see you all. I think it was a little bit longer than 75 seconds, whatever you want to call it. I thought, yeah, it was good until they scored. I thought we were okay, actually. Thought we created a couple of chances. We weren't clinical in those chances. We dawdled, as we tend to do. And as soon as they got the goal and they grew into the game, it was one-way traffic, really. We didn't really do a lot. We fell to bits. And yeah, by the end of it, it was a little bit, just get me home. I just didn't want to be in there anymore. It was quite embarrassing, to be honest.
Stick with us on this YouTube after the first 1 minute and 50 seconds, because we are hoping when we get to the end that we do see there is potential in what we have in this team that we can get some Premier League points in October. John, look, we're on 3 points. I put a tweet out putting everything on the line, how I was feeling Sunday, and I'm happy that we've got 3 points on the board. It was a tough calendar. The little frustrations are just some of the areas and errors and mistakes that we're making in some of these performances. Some of the output we're not getting from players that we've had output from, and you just wanted to get that monkey off the back for me, get that first win, and then we can go into these 3 games that are very much winnable. We haven't done that. The game against Everton this Saturday is going to be interesting, which we'll come to later. But where are you at after 7 games, 3 points on the board?
Yeah, so I suppose just sort of to start with where we are, as you said, I'm like you. I if anything, we might even be a point ahead of where I thought we might even be at this point in the season. I looked at the first 7 fixtures and I went, oh no, that is a horrible start. And it was something that I made note of when we started our last season under Parker, was we had Villa and then we had those 3 horrible fixtures against City, Arsenal, and Liverpool. And I said, we've got to win against the Aston Villa, because he was introducing a new system, which he stuck to for basically 2 games. And it was like, if you're going to change things around in a pre-season, you need to get something to get everyone on board with it. And obviously we beat Villa, but Villa were terrible, but we won that game. And then Parker went on to show what he's like, and he got sacked after 4 games. And in this one, that was what I was worried about a little bit. I was thinking, like, where is the win in this first 7 games? I thought maybe at home to West Ham. And in the end, the closest we've come is obviously away to Brentford. And I do think that if we win that game, I think the picture here is very different. We'd only be on 5 instead of 3, but there would be a different feeling because we'd already have that win. So it shows how close things are to change. But if you look at the other 14's baseline tracker, we're bang on where we should be. Over the first 7 games, we've only had 1 game at home against a team outside the top 6, which was West Ham. We've got a draw against them. We've got a draw against Chelsea. We've got a draw against Brentford. So really, it always was going to be these first 7 games is just a really long pre-season. Can we slowly build up the style under Iraola, slowly get more used to it, get the players back to fitness, bring ourselves to the point where when we play Everton and when we go on to play Wolves and Burnley, we are ready and we are at it and we can go and win those games. And as we'll come on to, that faith has dwindled because of the most recent performance against Arsenal.
Yeah, I do want to dive into our attempts at an identity, performances, players, Aaron. But we've spoken about it on previous episodes, those corresponding fixtures that we had last season, we are actually 3 points up. We actually got 0 points from the games we played. And we go into Everton on Saturday, where we got nothing from a few months ago in the final game of the season last season. You have to balance that, of course, because if you're going to use that argument, which I have used, we then need to beat Liverpool at home. We need to go and beat Tottenham away. So I get all of that. And we need to finish on more than 39 points if we want to put it all into one bucket. But it was a poor performance on Saturday.
Yeah, look, I have to hold my hands up. I didn't get to see much of it. I was unavailable. But obviously, spoken to a lot of people, seen as many highlights and etc. and commentaries and critiques as I can. It didn't sound good. Obviously, I didn't really expect much against Arsenal. I think I predicted 3-1 defeat on Cherries in Focus in the previous episode. I've seen it 2 times before under various managers that just, we just don't seem to play well against Arsenal at home of the recent seasons. And when Arsenal click, and I saw the team lineup, Saka, Rice, Saliba all starting, yeah, my hopes kind of evaporated. I concur with everything that obviously you and John mentioned regarding where we should be. I too probably was wondering if we're going to get to 3 points after 7 games. We did. I also think, I'm not saying I concur with this, but when we look at the fixtures, it's very easy to sort of say, how could we get anything from those games? Chelsea are not particularly good this season. Forest went there and won. They can't really buy a win themselves. Brentford really... at the time, obviously, I was there at Brentford, and we were a whisker away from winning that game. But in essence, away at Brentford, a draw isn't a bad result. They've only won 1 game this season, so again, they're not firing. They're obviously missing Tony. They're missing a number of players as well. City go and beat Wolves go and beat Manchester City. Crystal Palace go and win at Man United. Forest gave Arsenal a hell of a fright at the Emirates, and I think that's the thing. We do get these results; they are possible, and other teams have got them. But on the other hand, we've lost 4 games this season to Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, and away at Brighton. So again, it's very difficult to judge. But I think it's just a very, very bizarre feeling at the moment, because we've got all this excitement off the pitch, the training ground, the new stadium hopefully will follow. We're spending untold sums of money that we've never spent before. We have on paper an exciting foreign manager, never had that like of before, with the reputation for exciting football. It should be the most exciting time of our lives, really, but it's anything but at the moment. And it's we'll obviously delve more into it. The identity, we're not getting what we thought we were getting, certainly yet. But it's just a very bizarre feeling. So my personal perspective is I'm not panicking yet, because I've said all along that these 7 games are going to be very difficult. But I'm just a little bit concerned that we've now reached these 3 games that we've been talking about for goodness knows how long, and the pressure's on. And I'm now worried these 3 games won't give us a return we're all kind of expecting. We've been expecting since August.
I'll come to you, Steve, first, and anyone else jump in during these conversations. And I like the appointment. I didn't deny it. I like the appointment. It's something we've never done before. We've seen other teams that have come from where we've come from successfully do this, in the likes of Roberto De Zerbi. I like the appointment. I like some of the action we were doing in the signings. Reviewing some of those signings now, I'm starting to doubt a few. But I like the appointment. I'm not yet, Steve, going to say I'm done with it. I think it's still very early. We've all talked about the tough calendar. But I have got something in my head where I'm thinking, is it going to be Andoni Iraola if it doesn't work? Or is it going to be the players? Because for 3 seasons since Eddie's left, we've been pragmatically coached. And we've been asked to sometimes sit deep and counter-attack. Can the players do it?
I think they've got to take some responsibility. It's not completely down to the manager. It's a tough situation. Like you just stated, it's something we've never tried before. It's a guy who's fresh into the English game. I mean, people spoke about. I've heard people say, "Look at Mikel Arteta when he first took over at Arsenal. He had an awful start, and it's but he was all." The problem with that is that Mikel knew English football. He knew a lot of, he'd played most of his career, and Andoni's fresh into it. Never ever had any experience before. He hasn't got his right hand man yet. which is mental still. And look, the game in isolation on Saturday was a bad day at the office. Let's just put it like that. And the other games we've played, I think, and I made this point the other day, that we've been in most of them for long parts. Take the second half out of it, maybe Spurs out of it. The rest of them, I think we've competed. And if it wasn't for some unforced errors, some silly mistakes, we probably got about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 more points. So it's a tough one. I'm not done with it by any means. I think you've got to give these things time. We're still missing key players. The Adams setback again is. I mean, it's amazing how much we missed Jeff. And we always said this when we had him as a player, is that when he was not playing, we missed him massively, and we're still missing him now. And hopefully Adams can be that saviour and come in there and do the job. But at the minute, I mean, my concern is that the last couple of games, the second half against Brighton and Saturday's game, there's been some horrible bits creeping into our play, which I'm not enamoured with at all. Our defending, for one, is shambolic. It's all over the show. Our midfield isn't really working. I don't really know what he's trying to do. Feels ineffective in there. He's not. We're losing his goal contributions and his creativeness. For his defensive, we all know aren't that great. Christie, moment of the madness on the weekend. He's trying so hard. He's almost just going over the top, and it's just, I don't know. It's kind of a bit like Kirkes. Kirkes, I find, is over exuberant, and there seems to be too much. We're trying to be so competitive. We're making silly mistakes, and compete. Run around like hell. This chaotic theory. I just think there needs to be some structure. Unfortunately, I don't really want to talk about the game, to be honest, because I could talk for hours about it and how bad the goals are. But I'm just going to put it down to a bad day at the office. We've got some winnable games coming up, and Andoni needs to find a way to start turning these good bits of play that we're seeing into points. Because if he doesn't, unfortunately, you know what football's like these days, and and I know the owners say a lot of things, but when the money starts to be affected, unfortunately, the itchy trigger fingers start to happen. So I don't know. We don't know the owners and how genuine they are. They might stick with him, they might not. But I wouldn't want to be in that situation. He's got to find a way to start getting some points on the board.
I was just going to add in there that I think, obviously a lot of this is down to Andoni. He's trying to impose his style. There might be a bit of naivety there. As I said, no experience of the English League, and things that were successful for him at Vallecano might just not be possible in the English Premier League. Steve touched on Lerma, and I know I've been banging the drum about missing Jeff. I think it's more than that. I don't know if it's even too dramatic to say that without us even knowing it, Jeff carried us for the best part of 5 years. I think he was that good, that important to us. I honestly do think that, because it's evident now that there is no protection whatsoever. That midfield is a gaping hole in it. And I think he's carried us. And we kind of knew that in some of the games he was suspended or injured, but we kind of got by because he was always back sooner rather than later. And for me, that should have been the number one priority this summer was, once we knew he was going, whenever it was, is getting that replacement. And we have, I think, essentially got that replacement, but we signed someone who hasn't played since March, who's clearly got a dodgy hamstring, who played 20 minutes against Stoke and now is out for a while. God knows how long that is. That could be 3 or 4 weeks. It could be 2 months. I've got no idea. And the squad imbalance is criminal. And I go back to the recruitment. We've got one left back at this club. I think we all rate Kirkes, but as John said, or as Steve just said, he's not. He is exuberant. He is prone to errors. He's 19 years old. He's the only left back at the football club. We've got one central defensive midfielder at the football club who's like a sick note again. God knows when he's going to get fit. We've got 8 wingers at the club, most of whom I think are bang average. I'm not seeing. I just don't.
Here's a question. Sorry, question. How many of those are better than Anthony? Just in your opinions?
Well, I honestly think they're all much for muchness. I was just saying this off air before. I'm just not seeing it. Dango has flashes of brilliance, but is inept for most of the time. I haven't seen enough of Sinistera to be honest to judge. I think Semenyo's been really good, direct and strong, but it seems to have not been favoured recently. I'd like to see Brooks more central. That's a different story. And then and Kluivert is okay. They're okay. These players. Tavernier hasn't hit the ground running yet, but it's all very it's all lopsided. And I think this squad imbalance is really hurting us. And I think, as you mentioned, the midfield, Steve, the midfield's where we're losing it. There's no protection for the defence. The defence is looking shambolic. Not purely not because of their own fault, because there are errors creeping in, but because they've got no protection. We can't expect Lewis Cook and Phil Billing to play those roles.
John.
Sorry, I'll just jump in. I do think that, because the midfield has come up a lot, I do think that Iraola, from the research that I did and some of the videos that I watched, I do feel like he's trying to play a game that isn't going to work as well as it did in Spain. Now, Spain, I think La Liga is quite a technically gifted league. I think there is a history of, particularly obviously Real Madrid and Barcelona. Well, Pep in particular with Barcelona obviously was doing things in La Liga way before he was doing them in the Premier League, and that will have had an effect on the league as a whole. But I would say that the technical quality in the Premier League is probably going to be generally at a higher level. And the thing is that we are currently judging him based on how effective is his plan to high press against basically all the best teams to beat that high press. When you think of Brentford will go over you, Brighton will play through you, Arsenal play through you, Liverpool play through you, Tottenham play through you in their new ability, in how good they've been recently. It's the teams that shouldn't be or probably aren't as good at it that really you would hope that he does more with. But then that counteracts the point that we know he got plenty of points against Barcelona and Real Madrid when he was at Vallecano over his last two seasons. I do have an issue at the moment with how high we are pressing, particularly from goal kicks, because how often were we frustrated under Eddie when he stuck to 4-4-2 and our midfield looked like it had no control in the game because the game was shifting to a three-man midfield and Arter and Sermon were constantly outnumbered and we just kept going. Why do you keep playing King and Wilson? Please put someone else in there, whether it was Cook or Gosling or whoever it was in the time. And obviously now Eddie has moved on to a 4-3-3 coach for Newcastle. And whilst we do nominally play in a 4-2-3-1, Christie plays as a second striker the vast majority of the time in the press. And we are constantly losing out where there's an extra man free. It was, what's his name, youngster at Chelsea, midfielder, blonde, shaggy haired.
Gallagher.
It was Gallagher that was ending up in space all the time against them. Liverpool worked well initially, and then it was probably actually their right-hand side that we struggled to deal with. Against Tottenham, it was Maddison that was getting a lot of space. Against Arsenal, it was I think it was up to about 5 minutes when things looked good.
Zinchenko.
And then suddenly, 5th minute, Zinchenko ends up in has the entirety of Dean Court to himself when he's in the middle because the players aren't necessarily as comfortable enough to make sure they're actually following the man they need because it's a really difficult system to implement without allowing space to be cut through. And I think he just needs to defend deeper at times. He doesn't have to press quite so high, and we need to have more of a mid-block, but it's just inviting so much. But then it is games against Everton. It's going to be against Burnley that if it works, that's the point at which you can say, right, there's the building blocks to then go, and now you're more confident. Because I do feel like a lot of players are lacking confidence at the moment as well. I look at Tavernier and I just go, what happened to you, man? Like, where was the touches and the movement and the aggressiveness that you were playing with under O'Neill when you just came on and made something happen the entirety of a second half of the season when you were fit? As is the case with a lot of the wingers, there's just seems to be a lack of confidence at the moment, which is what's so worrying. That you would hope that there were things that you could take into the Everton game and say, well, at least this is working. But any of the confident bits that I had against games like Liverpool, times against Tottenham, moments against Brentford, basically none of them were there against Arsenal. And that's the worry, to take that into such an important game against Everton.
I think there's a lack of confidence flowing through the team, and I said this back at the beginning of the season: is it if we have very few points on the board, and we've shipped quite a few goals, which we have, is the confidence going to be on the floor a little bit? And I see it. You look at Dom; he should be confident. He scored 4 goals already this season. Should be confident, but he still doesn't seem to be at top confidence level. He's sort of still umming and ahhing sometimes when he's taking a shot. Phil looks devoid of all confidence because he's playing in a position he doesn't really like. I think the back four, they just look so unconfident. It's unbelievable. I mean, they're making such basic errors, and I just think it's leaking into into the demeanour a bit. I even think Andoni, I think his demeanour's dropped off a little bit in some of the interviews I've seen him. It just doesn't seem as happy and chirpy as I know you're not going to be enjoying losing, but it's a manager's job to keep the spirits high and all the rest of it. He just doesn't seem to be coming across that chipper anymore. It's a bit.
Sorry, go on, Steve. Sorry.
No. I just kind of just finished.
Yeah, I was just going to say the strange thing is if you look at all the forward players, Cliver was he signed after Andoni came? Everyone else, none of them are his signings. You're playing with you obviously got Cook, Rothwell, Billing, Christie in the midfield at the moment. They were Solanke, Atara, even Traore wasn't his signing. Sinisterra is the only one really, isn't it? Semenya wasn't. So none of these players were his signings. Of all the money we spent, the 2 marquee signings are still sat on the blooming injury bench and looks like they will
Kirk
be
and Aarons are the 2, I'd say.
Yeah, so defensively wise. Yeah. But interestingly about Aarons, as impressed I've been with him, I think he's been great. And this is nothing against him. I'm wondering whether we would need to bring Adam Smith in just for some experience and leadership at the back. I know it's easy to say that when he's not in the team because you suddenly think about what Aarons brings and doesn't bring. But I'm wondering now.
CDM.
Yeah, well, potentially we've spoken about that before, but I think at this stage, with everything as it is, it's not ideal. But I would get Smith into this team at the moment because I think we need it.
Yeah,
it's interesting conversations, isn't it? Because Steve asked about wingers who we thought would play a big part in Andoni's delivery, in his identity, and me and John, said previously about Dango's feet. That's getting worse. And I hate to laugh, but it's really tough to watch Dango try and do the basics. Sinisterra, need to give him a bit more time. He doesn't look any better than Jaden Anthony from what I've seen. Only glimpses. If anything, Jaden Anthony might have a little bit more work rate. Justin Kluivert looks too lightweight for me. I don't see him someone that's going to rip it up. And David Brooks is not really getting a look in after having a fantastic preseason. Probably didn't take his chance in the Carabao Cup against Stoke guys, but David Brooks does have technique. He does have talent.
He scored.
He can score goals. So what is it then? Is it that he can't press? I mean, our press is clunky anyway. It's not a unit that's pressing.
Yeah.
But what is it? Why is Dangu Tara, who's not really playing that well at the moment, getting on before David Brooks?
I think you can see based on the kind of players that are playing
pace, isn't it?
At the moment, it's all about having pace and physicality. Which, as Kurt mentioned, Kluivert's knack of absolutely pussyfooting his way around tackles is so frustrating. The amount of times that he'll just poke a toe towards a guy that's going full-blooded in to win the ball. I'm screaming at my screen at Kluivert going, make an effort, man. It's so frustrating considering actually I have been impressed with his work rate at times. He just doesn't tackle, which is so frustrating.
But it reminds me of kids' football, John.
Yeah, just scared to put his, which is more likely to get him injured. That's the stupid thing.
Exactly what I say to my boys. Exactly what I say to my boys.
But you look at Tavernier, you look at Kluivert, you look at even Sinisterra, you look at definitely Ouattara. They all are very physical, pacey. They've got all the physical attributes that you need to be a professional footballer and a very hardworking, aggressive, effective player in this system. But do they have the technical ability when they're getting on the ball? Because when you look at Ouattara, he definitely doesn't. It's been worrying the levels of non-league he has looked on the ball at times when he's been coming on. And then you look at, I mentioned Tavernier isn't doing the things that I necessarily want he was doing when he was at his best last season. I look at Cliver, isn't combining at all with other players enough, in my opinion, particularly Kirkes. Sinisterra's barely gotten on the ball, but when he does, he doesn't really do anything with it. And I just think that it's something that I noted when we first started. When you look through our entire first 11 for basically the entirety of these first 7 games, who's the one that's going to actually provide the goals?
Yep.
And the one that's most likely to do that based on precedent is Dominic Solanke. He got the most assists out of almost the entire rest of the team added together from the previous season on his own, because he got 7 last season. No one else had more than 2. And you go like, Anthony is the one that actually has some technical ability to provide an assist, or at least he's shown it, certainly in the Championship. Sinisterra is more of a goal scorer. Cliver has never been an assister. Tavernier can, and I was hoping he would, but he doesn't look like he's capable of. Ouattara did provide some assists, but again, he just looks like he's got nothing about him at the moment. So I'm wanting Christie to step up. He's finally got his first assist of the season. That was through the press, fair enough. But I'm wanting Brooks to come in, and he's got the technical ability to find a pass. And he looks like he wants to do it. When Brooks comes on, he looks like he's trying to take the game by the scruff of the neck, even if he's finding it difficult at times because he's not getting the support. And one of the big things for me at the moment is the fact that I'm not seeing enough from the fullbacks. Kirkes is aggressive, and I like that he pushes forward, but he also pushes forward quite centrally as well. When he gets the ball out wide, he doesn't cross it. Aarons doesn't get forward at all. But he is, I've looked up his stats on SofaScore, he is bottom 7%. He's in the bottom 7% for crosses of a ball at a fullback in Europe's top 5 leagues. Adams, I would rather have Adam Smith in there at the moment, because you saw against Stoke, he got the ball and he crossed it. Yeah. Great, wouldn't you know it? Dominic Solanke scored. I just want to see some level of creativity. And the frustrating thing has been, if we're not winning the ball high in the press, in the last few games, I've not seen anything from open play. I remember our counter-attack goal against Brentford, which was great. We haven't been doing that enough at all. If it's not in the press, I don't know where our goals are coming from. And if it's not, and I need more from the fullbacks, and I need Iraola to let Billing off the leash, because he's just not forward enough. I spoke about the fact that I thought Billing would be in the double pivot, because you let Adam sit deep, and then Billing pushes on and it enters the box late. He gets onto the end of things, but he just keeps standing 50 yards away from goal. And it's so frustrating because it's not doing anything for us at all. It's not doing anything defensively, and it's certainly not doing anything offensively.
What was strange for the first sort of the good part of the game on Saturday is I thought that Christie was actually playing in the deeper role and Billing was a lot more forward at the start, and then it changed.
Yeah,
and I don't know why it changed, because we were actually better when Billing was further forward.
These 2 players you're talking about, Cook and Christie, are 3 of our midfielders. Their goal and assist record is abysmal, and that's 2 of our 3 midfielders. So you're setting yourself up straight away. I
don't think that's. Carry on, Aaron. Sorry.
No. I was just going to say, I can't wait for next year when we got Adam, Scott, and Favour. What a brilliant midfield 3 that would be. Different level.
But I just feel like that's not necessarily the most important thing, because we had them last season from midfield. Christie was playing a right mid when Tavernier wasn't fit, but you had Lerma, who actually did score 5 goals in the end by some miracle. But you had, whether it was Rothwell, whether it was Cook, they didn't score. But you had at least Tavernier providing. You had Ouattara coming in and providing. You had something happening from the wings or from Billing and Solanke. It was entirely from the front 4, with occasionally from Lerma. But you had more than just one player that was going to do something. At the moment, it's Solanke, it's nothing. And that is a worry.
Sorry, can I ask you a question, as you've been sat there very quietly whilst we've been ranting away? Do you think Andoni knows who his best 2 wingers are? Because I don't feel like he does. And the chopping and changing every week, there's no partnerships being formed. You say about Kirkes not getting in, not overlapping. Well, I've seen him get overlooked so many times when he has tried to. Yeah, what do you think, Kurt?
Yeah, I think it was at Brighton when Kirk made a very good overlap and Clivert just completely ignored him and
Yeah.
gave the ball away in the centre of the park, or centre of the area outside the 18-yard box. And I totally agree. I think you've nailed something there. Does Andoni know his best 11? I don't think he does. And I think we're going into a massive month, which we all knew October was going to be where our season started. And I'll ask you guys later how many points you think we need, because I think I'd love 9 out of 9. Realistically, I want at least 6 out of 9. And this fixture coming this weekend against Everton is tricky, Steve, because they've lost 4 games at home. They've scored 1 goal. They've just lost to Luton. So the pressure's ramped up now because there will be people out there. And I don't want to belittle Luton, clearly. But if people are out there going, well, Luton did it, Bournemouth should do it.
Yeah.
But it makes it an even trickier tie. And I don't want Andoni to get nervous, but he's going to be nervous, isn't he, Steve?
Yeah, I think the more and more he goes along, and you don't get that W under your belt, it becomes a bit of a monkey on your back, doesn't it? This is all new to him, like we've said, and maybe he's scratching his head, going, "Well, this, I'd like to think he's not out of ideas, but he's trying things game to game, different stuff we're seeing, and none of it seems to be clicking. None of it seems to be working." And that's where there's a big red flag for me, that he's trying things, but we're not really seeing the fruits of it. We see glimpses and we see parts of the game where we think, oh, we look okay. You can see what he's trying to do. But then in the next game, you get something different. And I fear for Everton, actually, because I think, okay, there is that thing about them not winning in 4 at home, losing to Luton. But I've watched them from afar recently, and I think some of the signings they've made, it's almost like Deitch is trying to recreate the Burnley side that he had. He's got Tarkowski, he's got some big lumps in that side, and they are physical and they are good at free kicks. And what are we not good at in corners, set pieces? They've got good delivery in the likes of is it McNeil? So I almost said O'Neill there. McNeil and Ashley Young. I think it's a very shrewd little buy. That got great delivery, and I fear for us because we could get bullied quite easily up there by them. I think we're very soft. We've got a very soft underbelly at the moment. We're very easy to score against. So yeah, it's a difficult time, and I would be nervous if I was Andoni.
Okay,
you got Onana, you got Doucouré. They're all going to must.
They're massive.
They are, and actually they played much better than Luton from what I've read and heard. And Luton, not saying Luton didn't deserve it, but Everton definitely weren't. Were on the front foot, and their keeper made quite a few saves, etc. So, and they're going to be wounded as well. I think if you look at it two ways, as I said before, that they're either massively low confidence if we get the first goal, which we have done often this season, which is good. Or they're going to be looking for a massive reaction after being really poor against a Luton, or poor result at home to Luton, and their fans are going to be ramped it up, which always seems to be the case when we play there. As I said before, they've lost 7 out of their last 8 home games, and the one they didn't lose to was us at the end of last season. So it could be 7 out of 9, and both half times. And if we go to Everton,
am I right in thinking that they haven't beaten any of the newly promoted sides yet? They draw against Sheffield and lose to Luton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lost home to Wolves as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I would say that Everton are the one thing that, because I would have been worried about Everton, but to bring my bit into the conversation in XG, they are massively underperforming. They should have scored about 14 goals, I think, 13 or 14, and they've got 5.
Calvert-Lewin's back now. That's the problem.
They've got Calvert-Lewin back. Beto looks a decent player. Got Dan Juma to bring off the bench. They're both big, obviously. Doucouré got big. Yeah, they're better than their results have suggested, quite definitely. But we have also been underperforming as well in terms of our underlying stats as well, quite significantly. So, I think. I mean, I've gone in a lot, but I do think that it is still the case that every time I talk about the negativity and every time I think about this should be better, that should be better, this should be better, I look at all the games that we played and I just think, but still, like, it's not the end of the world to lose to Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham, and put in at times decent showings.
No, and that's what you got to remember.
And I do think that if we put in a good 45 minutes against Everton and make the most of it, like we did against Brighton, then we're not 1-1 at half time, which we were very unlucky to be, and then obviously went 2-1 and things went pear-shaped very quickly. We could be 2-0, 2-1 up instead. We could have some confidence and take that into the second half against them or whatever. We could absolutely dominate against them, and obviously at times we could struggle. But it is so much of our season starts over the next 3 weeks, and whilst that brings me some positivity to sort of say, look at what it could be, it also makes me go, oh my God, look at how it could be. Because if things start going downhill before it needs to improve, then you've got to really worry about it.
So Everton are on 4 points, just outside the relegation zone. We have fallen into the relegation zone following results last weekend, and we are on 3 points. And we're just into the second half of this episode, guys. And I want to focus on Everton and particularly how we set up for this Saturday. Steve just spoke about, do we know who our best wingers are? I've spoken about, do we know our best 11? Well, I think Neto starts. I've got questions about Neto. Not enough time to speak about it on this episode, but he's going to start. The back four might be the same, or it could be Adam Smith coming in at right back from some experience. But I really want to get stuck into this midfield, guys, okay? Lewis Cook is not a full package CDM. So I've said it a few weeks ago. I think I'm going to say it now. Ryan Christie is a workhorse. I think he's got to come out. I think he's got to come out. I need Rothwell in there. If Tyler Adams is not fit, and we know he isn't, I need Rothwell in because Lewis Cook can't do it on his own, and I need Bill in higher up. That's where I was on Saturday. I wanted to see it against Arsenal. A game we probably weren't going to win, but I wanted to see it preparing for Everton. I want Brooks on his side, Tavernier probably off the left, and Dom Solanke.
Well, the other way of looking is you could put Christie on the right if you really want to keep him in the team and take him out of that midfield.
Numbers.
No, I agree. And I would have. I mean, we haven't spoken about Semenyo yet. I don't know about you three. I might be missing something, but he was one of the brightest sparks at the beginning of the season. He's strong. He's direct. He doesn't get bullied. He's physical. He's got a hell of a shot on him, as he proved at Liverpool. He's not scared to shoot. He came on against Brighton, and when the game was already gone, and looked.
That in itself's a massive thing.
Yeah, I'm not. Unless I'm missing something, I'm not sure why he's not in this team at the moment, and Brooks for that matter. And I'll play Brooks centrally. I've said that before, but
both of them have scored. That's just
So I would play Brooks and Semenyo personally, but that leaves Tavernier out of the team. But I don't disagree about Christie. I think I love him to bits. He works his arse off, but you can't accommodate him because then you're losing Billing's situation. You, as you say, Lewis Cook's not having any help as well, and he's not good enough to play on his own against the midfield three or whoever's bombing at him.
The problem we've got is we can't play Rothwell as a single pivot either. So you've got to play both of them. Rothwell drives with the ball for me. I know I want Bill in higher up, but he takes us up the pitch. Steve, I thought he had a very good game against Stoke City. I know it's a Carabao Cup against Stoke City. He got his first goal. He can deliver set pieces. Tavernier is sort of delivering how he was when he first come to the club. It took him a while to really find that real quality on the ball. And I love Tavernier. He's probably my favourite winger up there with David Brooks. I need Rothwell. I think I need Rothwell in this team. There's too many spaces, and I need someone that has real quality when we turn the ball over.
For me, it doesn't really bother me. All I want to see is Bill further up the pitch. You could have Christie there or Rothwell. I get what you're saying about Rothwell's drive. I think Christie's deceptively good at doing that, and he can skip past players. Look what he did it's just the finishing and the numbers. But as far as pushing forward, I think he's okay. So I wouldn't care if it's Rothwell or Christie in there helping Lewis Cook. I just want to see Billing further forward. So and going on to, I agree with Aaron said, Semenyo for me, and Brooks, because you've had results from the pair of them. I know that's harsh on Tav, maybe, but maybe he's just not quite up to speed. Let's not forget, he's not long come back from injury. Maybe he needs a bit more time, a few more substitute appearances, get himself, back in full match fitness. Because there was a point, I mean, on the I know I'm touching back on the Arsenal game. He made a really good driving run forward, and then he went to play a switch pass across to the other side of the pitch, and it went miles away. Yeah, it was just so wayward, and you just think that's rustiness. It's not quite there yet. We know that Brooks has scored, has done it, has contributed at all levels. He's done it in the cup. He's done it in the league. He's done it internationally this season. And the guys, he must be thinking to himself, why can't I get a start? Semenyo comes on gets a start against Liverpool, grabs it with both hands. What was the other game where I just was even when we went down to we were losing that game against Liverpool, he was still the one that was driving, and then Traore came on. And Spurs as well. He was the only one really sort of getting the ball and driving forward with it. So it's either you keep sort of flogging a dead horse with the likes of Atara, who unfortunately needs a lot more polishing, I think, as we've all said, or you've got to give Sinistera a go, because why bring him in? I mean, what's the point if you're not going to utilise him? I mean, he could have played. What was it? He could have come on against Brighton, didn't? I don't know why. And then okay, ignore the cup tie. But you brought the guy in, you got rid of one of our guys who has contributed goals, all not massive numbers, but assists and goals. You swap him out, and he's done it in the Premier League, don't forget, and Championship level. And you bring in a guy who's supposed to be better pedigree, and you don't use him. This is why I think I don't know that he really understands who his best players are.
John, just before you come on to your point, John, it's the protection for me. I mean, I praise Ryan Christie. Like, the guy wears his heart on his sleeve. I've never seen an engine like it, but I need that protection for Lewis Cook. I know that Everton are not going to play like Arsenal. They're not going to have inverted wingers. They're not going to have a James Maddison that's going to find pockets. I just need a little bit more protection for Lewis Cook, and Rothwell is more forward thinking.
Well, I mean, the thing is that there's nothing to stop him from playing a 4-3-3 with Rothwell and Billing as the 2-8s and Kirk sitting a bit deeper as the 6 and playing that great role that he did under Parker as the more playmaker style 6 rather than the ball winner 6. And I mentioned it before in terms of the fact that we're giving opposition too much space when we're initiating our press. And I just think that there is definitely a way that Iraola can still initiate a decently high press, but not be as suicidal with it. Because Christie plays really high up, and he's the one that sort of initiates it. And Solanke maybe he doesn't want Solanke to use up as much energy running between players, although he's done that plenty, particularly against Arsenal. But you sort of leave Solanke on one of the defenders, Christie pushes over to the other, but then you need every other man to follow up exactly as they should. And obviously you saw when it probably would have been Tavernier wasn't following Zinchenko, that it completely breaks down. But against Everton, like, it could end up with a similar situation to what it was against Brentford. They'll just hit it over the press anyway, so there's no point in really going too hard at them anyway. And the issue with coverage in terms of midfield that we're all worried about is almost entirely a numbers thing. It's almost entirely a fact that we end up playing basically a 4-4-2 when we're trying to be aggressive and high, and it's meaning that a 3-man midfield completely dominates us, and means that whatever initiative we're trying to produce just completely dissipates, and within 2 passes and 5 seconds, we're now on the edge of our own box, but outnumbered and worryingly in a counter-attack situation. So I think that the thing is at the moment is Iraola got a lot of success, and he got a decent bit of luck as well in terms of I would imagine certain players not getting any injuries that they have in our team so far. Is he had his ball winner DM that played like 36 games for him in Vallecano last season. He had that midfielder that sort of played as the 8 that just ran all day but had the awareness to be in the right position. He had his number 10 that made the right runs and made the right presses. He's trying to implement a new style into a group of players that maybe have it in them, but don't necessarily have the time or the confidence to get themselves to the point they need to be already when playing against these really good sides. And what Iraola had as well is that he had a whole season in the Segunda division with this Vallecano team, got them promoted through the playoffs, and then they were all familiar with his style when they got to the big boys, and they were very confident in doing what they were trained to do. I feel like him not having the staff that are, familiar with exactly what he wants isn't helping, particularly as Steve mentioned, he still hasn't got his number 2 with the work visa permit thing that is still, it's just a joke that it's not gone through yet. And he's dealing also with, obviously we want people that are familiar with Bournemouth to stick around, like Tommy Elphick, like Sean Cooper, but they're still less than a year and a half into coaching experience for a men's team as it is. So it's all just, you could understand why Iraola is getting frustrated with the fact that things aren't working. And I feel as though I think he needs to bite the bullet and just adapt a little bit better and just understand that if it's not working for a number of factors, but you can make it easier by not being as, he's clearly a system manager, but just like find a better way to make a beginner version of it that your players can get more comfortable with first. Because if you keep suffering these losses, and if it keeps going as it is, he's not going to have the opportunity to improve this at all, because might be the time to talk about it. If we don't start getting results soon, we don't know how quick Foley will be with the trigger. Like, he gave O'Neill time because he invested in them in January, and within a couple of weeks, things turned around very quickly. But the investment's already happened for Iraola. He's got a lot of players, a couple of which have been injured, fair enough. But you cannot keep waiting for a first win this long without him being under a certain amount of pressure. And I think if he doesn't get at least 4 points from these next 3 games, I think we could start hearing some major murmurings about maybe him possibly being given the sack, because it's getting inexcusable if we do not start getting points against the teams that we have to get points against.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's got to be given at least October for me. I mean, what I won't do is I won't criticise the club, and I think I said this earlier on, I won't criticise the club for being brave to do something that other clubs have been successful in doing. But it's football, and if he doesn't pick up enough points, then questions when we head into November, mid-November, end November, they're clearly going to be on his doorstep. I do want to probe this final question in this episode, and everyone, I believe you have definitely brought it up. If the players aren't buying into it, if the players are struggling, and it is a new identity, this is all new to a lot of these players, never been asked to do the stuff that they're being asked to do. Aaron, he's going into a game on Saturday against a fragile Everton, but an experienced manager who has had success when asked to play a chess game, whatever you want to call it. Dyche will be planning already what he's going to do to try and get a result. As poor as they are at home, does Andoni kick this can? I mean, it's not a can. It's what we wanted. We wanted entertainment. We wanted this chaos. We wanted goals. But if it's not right there at the moment, and he ain't got Tyler Adams, and he ain't got Alex Scott, does he have to do something outside of what he's done before?
Well, first, I think you hit the nail on the head. We keep going on about it, but his two marquee signings are both injured, and I think when you're looking at 3-man midfield, 2 of them would probably be in it and make a huge difference for both very different reasons. So it's a real shame for him But at the same time, it's not like he hasn't got a squad to use, and he's supposed to be a top class manager. Dyche, I think Sean. It's not a rocket science what Sean Dyche needs to do. I mean, if he can't work it out, I could write down what Sean Dyche needs to do on Saturday. Don't muck around at the back with it, because that's one thing we might have lucky with them against. Get the ball forward, launch it, and be direct and aggressive. So I'm pretty sure Dyche is not stupid, and Dyche has had big success over Bournemouth with various teams he's managed. I don't think Andoni can rip it up and say, right, for this game we'll do something different. It's very difficult to change your philosophy. Number one, it's difficult because you've been training in a certain way and the mindset. Number two, because it sends mixed messages to the team, because they suddenly start having doubts about the original philosophy. Does this manager know what he's doing? Now he's going to be asked to do something different. I think John was right. You can make tweaks. You certainly can make tweaks. I don't think you can change your philosophy. Eddie always stuck to his philosophy even in bad times. I just don't think it's the way to go. So personally, I don't think you can, but you can go philosophy light, like have the same philosophy, but just temper it a little bit and make a few tweaks and changes. Be that bringing in a more experienced head at the back like Adam Smith, be it playing two in the pivot instead of one. But then, playing two in that pivot, be it Rothwell and Cook or whoever, allows then the other four players to have a bit more license, knowing that there's a bit more protection. So there are little minor tweaks. I do fear for it. I do fear for Saturday. I know Everton are really, really low on confidence and blooming awful at home. But we're probably the one team they'd want to play at the moment. Just with our fragility and just our soft touch. We've always been like that. And as I said, the one player that wasn't like that, we've lost. So it's difficult. I do worry. At the same time, I can see the first half against Liverpool, the first half against Brighton, some of the play against Brentford. I can see us doing that and causing them huge amounts of problems and scoring as well. So I can definitely see both sides. And at this moment in time, I've got no idea which way it's going to go.
Because Steve, I get the feeling, tell me if I'm wrong, but I get the feeling you want us to be a little bit more organised. You wanted to see us defend better, which might be a style where you've got to convert very, very highly, take your only chance in the game, or you might only get two. I'm pretty sure you're going to tell me that Andoni's not going to rip up the book and throw it in the bin, but you want to see better defending. And if we're not, as a unit, delivering what he wants or his style, what do you want to see on Saturday? Because if he does something different and it doesn't work out, it'd be like, why'd you change everything you're trying to implement? This is where I am right now, Steve. I'm just in this, like, I really want it to work. I'm behind the gaffer. Is it the players? Is it Andoni? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I just think we need to be better at it. That's the bottom line. I don't think you need to, like Aaron's just said, don't rip up the rule book because it sends doubt into players' minds that, like you say, don't know what he's doing. They're learning it. They're getting there. We have seen good stuff. Let's not forget that. For all how bad it was on Saturday, there has been good stuff, and we've seen it on more than one occasion. And for a bit of bad luck, we'd have more points and we'd have got a win. But we just need to be better. I think the wingers need to chip in more defensively. I mean, we talk about Kluivert. The first goal against Arsenal, I'm not being funny, but he tracks all the way back to double up with Saka with Kirkes. As soon as Saka gives the ball to Odegaard and Odegaard puts the ball in, watch what he does. If anyone wants to watch it back, Kluivert just turns his back and walks up pitch. And I'm sorry, that's that. And Saka just wanders in. Kirkes doesn't go with him. Kluivert's not even watching him. Two guys. We just need to be better. We need to be on our game. They're not going to be as potent as Arsenal, obviously Everton, but you need to eradicate these silly mistakes. We talk about the Cook thing and Billing playing in a deeper role. Against Spurs, I said it. Billing doesn't follow his man. He doesn't track. He doesn't spot the danger of what's unfolding in front of him. It just gets played round him. He's just like watching the ball. These players, like you say, some of them have been pragmatic, but Billing's been playing as an attacking force for the last few years. Now, all of a sudden, he's supposed to be our defensive saviour. Well, I'm sorry, it's not going to just click like that, defensive saver, but he's going to help out our defence. He's not, and it's a hindrance both ends of the pitch. I just want to see a bit more thought go into who you're putting where. And the Adam Smith thing for me, I really think if we said, I don't necessarily think playing against Everton needs a double pivot. Certainly against Arsenal, it probably did. But Adam Smith, I honestly think for a bit of experience and getting someone alongside Kirk could do a really good job. And he will be that player who will galvanise and spur on the troops. I mean, is he our club captain still, or is he vice captain? Nothing anymore. Vice, is he? I still think he's got a louder voice than Neto's got, because unfortunately that guy isn't very vocal when he needs to be. He might be for the fans, but when he needs to be, we saw this at Brighton. We saw it twice at Brighton, really. I don't know.
The refs.
Sorry?
He is at the refs. He's mouthy as hell to the refs.
Well, yeah, but it's what I'm saying, John. It's not really at the right points, is it? It's not.
Exactly.
He's not.
Yeah.
It's not galvanising our squad of young players. He's got a lot of young players in front of him. I'm not picking on him here. I'm just merely pointing out I don't think he's the vocal captain you need. When we look back at the captains we have had, the likes of Elphick, Cook, they either lead by example or they're motivators on the pitch. Even, go back as sort of, Jason Pearce, another great captain we've had. But I don't see that sort of player out there anymore. And Neto for me is, I think if it were me, I'd give it back to Adam Smith and I'd get him involved some way, shape or form, because we need some, like Aaron said earlier, we need some experience out there. We need some solidity. We need somebody who's got some sort of defensive attributes that's going to spot danger, track runners, and organise. Because I think it's all being left to... I kind of feel a little bit sorry for Zabani in all of this, because I think he's a very, very, very talented defender. He almost looks like he's too good for the rest of them at times. And he must be looking around going, what's going on? Because, I watched him play with his national side and he's absolutely impeccable against England. And I thought they were well organised. And then he's playing with us and we're all over the place. And for a bunch of coaches who are defenders, it's a bit worrying. I'll finish now. It's Kirk frozen.
I think Kirk's maybe, but there we go. He's back.
I thought I bored you to death then.
Right at the end, I'm right back. Look, it's been an interesting 57 minutes, and we hope you've stuck with us. Do get your thoughts in the comments below. We've discussed an awful lot for good reason, because we think this team can deliver. We think Andoni Iraola can deliver, and we've got a massive month ahead of us. 9 points potentially available in the Premier League against Everton, Wolves and Burnley. Do subscribe to the channel. Do hit the like button. Very, very finally, guys, we've got 2 minutes going around the room. John, can we get something at Goodison Park? I'm not asking for a score prediction. Can we get something? 2 minutes. We've got 2 minutes to go around the room.
Yes, of course we can. And I think you made a very important point there. I will still back the manager and I will still back the players. As much as all the frustrations that I can have, all the concerns that I've voiced, all of the caveats that I've put in, I'm still backing the manager, because I do think he could do something with this group of players. He just needs time, but before he gets that time, he has to get a few results, and it has to happen soon. And I really hope that he does.
Is the first goal key in this game, Aaron? I feel like it is.
Yeah, massive. I said that before. I think if we get the first goal, I think Everton are the sort of team that they're not like Liverpool, they're not like Brighton. They haven't got the quality of those teams. We could put them to the sword. If they get the first goal, the crowd will be up behind them. Our confidence will be on the floor. Heads might drop. So yeah, first goal is always massive. We could be having a very different conversation in 3 or 4 weeks' time, because if we're sitting on, best case scenario, we're sitting on 12 points, we could be 9th or 10th in the table. It could go completely the other way. I mean, Luton play Burnley tomorrow. I mean, that's a bad game for us, because someone's going to win or draw, and it's we could be second bottom, or Luton could be 4 points ahead of us. So it's one of those games you don't want anything to happen. So by the time we play on Saturday, we know we're not going to be in a great position, but of course we can win. And I think maybe we will. Maybe all this kind of, I said, not negativity, because I think we're all understanding of, as I said, fixtures we've had, where we're at, etc., etc. We are where we should be. So it's not all negative. But I've seen enough this season within certain games that we can certainly cause Everton problems and score goals. And Dom's there to score the goals at the moment.
And finally, Steve, I know we took the lead at Brighton, but I thought, as away fans, I didn't think we were that loud. It was one of the weakest away sort of performance as fans in a while, because we're really, really good on the road. The fans need to be really, really good at Goodison Park. We need to be on it. And then if we're on it and the players are not on it, well, we've tried. And we just need to, all of us, team, collectively, fans, we've got to get over the line.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't at Brighton, strangely. It's one of the ones very few games I've missed. But that's very unlike us, actually, on an away day. And yeah.
You're not there.
Yeah, maybe. I very much doubt it, but maybe. Yeah, look, it's not a happy hunting ground. There's not a lot of, sort of good vibes that we can take from any previous sort of encounters with Everton. What we've got to do is like both the lads have said, we've just got to stick with this. And as a collective, like you've just said, get behind the boys no matter what. I'm sure the away fans will. It's a long way to go to just sit there and say nothing. So I'm sure we'll sing our hearts out as we always do. And look, we've had some bad luck along the way in these games. Some silly little errors that haven't gone quite our way. Maybe it's our time to get one that does go our way. Maybe we're due that penalty. Who knows? And it just might be that little thing that kickstarts us. Instills a bit of confidence, and we start seeing the fruits of Andoni's labour. Because, like we've said, we all see it in spits and spots, but it's just getting that W. Because I think once we do, it's going to be a different kettle of fish. And like Aaron said, we could be having a completely different conversation. So yeah, get behind the boys. I'll be there. Don't worry, it'll be fine.
I won't be, so don't worry. You got a chance this weekend.
Yeah, it's definite 3 points.
Thank you very much for checking out this video. Do support the channel. We're on our way to 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. Do follow and do what you got to do on the podcast. Do hit the like button. Do get your thoughts below in the comments. October, as Ondoni always says, offers opportunities. We need to get something. Thank you, John. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Steve. And thank you to all the fans that have checked out this video. Look after yourself between now and kickoff. And we'll see you on the next one. Up, Cherries.
Out the chairs. Come on.